Yeah, I'll just tell some funny stories today. It will not be some kind of super technical presentation. Just some my experience on how I did some pet projects on the weekend because I don't have too much time for pet projects because I have kids and so on. First thing is that I work at Gurtam company. It's located here in 5 minutes in Technopolis. So I didn't spend much time working here. Uh, and at Gurtam we develop IoT products. The biggest product is Velon. It's fleet management service with 4 million devices connected. And I work in FLESP department. We have almost 900,000 devices connected, almost 400 customers all over the world with a team of only 10 people, which is quite productive work we're doing, I think. And one of the keys to success, I think that, well, first is that from this 10-person, 9 are developers. And these developers have, in average, 11 years in industry. So it's just, I wanted to share with you my happiness, how it's cool to work in a very experienced team. Also, our CEO and the team lead of FLESP is active developer, so he's writing code every day. So he's very, very deep in this, and this is another happiness I want to share with you because it's so cool when your boss can code and does it every day, so you speak the same language. Well, maybe not always cool because you cannot lie to him about some estimations, so that's up to you to decide. But also, the key to productiveness is that we try to automate everything that is reasonable to be automated. And finally, like at the beginning of this year, we released first-line AI assistant for our platform, and it was completely developed by our CEO from scratch for 2 months, using this RAG technique that Isaac told us about in the beginning of the day, which was like the best presentation I've heard today. Thank you, Isaac. And yeah, but the idea here is like for this couple people here that don't know what is RAG, I'll just elaborate it a little bit. So we have a platform. It has a lot of specific knowledge, and we want our first line support to answer specific domain knowledge to our customers, which is like we double in every year. And what options do we have? If we need a large language model that will answer instead of us, first one is build your own. Isaac also told about it a little bit about custom LLMs, but of course it's like a lot of money that should be prepared. Another one is fine-tuning, which will require a lot of time for investigation and time for investigation. And RAG. And well, I graduated from mathematics faculty, and I always think about something necessary and sufficient. So if I'm asked about how to explain what is RAG in very short way, it's kind of like the most necessary and sufficient data. I think that if we ask like what is 1 + 1, LLM answers 2. But if we equip it with some knowledge, then the answer is another and correct and very different. So the question is how to equip the LLM with some knowledge. And here we are on the ground of natural language, and how to equip our prompt with the knowledge usually lies in the question of how to find what is the question we asked is relevant to. Before that, couple advantages of RAG that has to be discussed is that is cheaper than training your own model or fine-tuning. The knowledge is dynamic, so if you find that your or our AI assistant answers something incorrectly, we just find the place in the documentation it's based on, fix it, update our model, and it starts to answer correctly. And the best I like it about it's explainability. So when you ask ChatGPT question, it starts to answer something or hallucinate. you cannot show, you cannot tell on what kind of weight triggers this hallucination or this or that answer. But with RAG, you know which chunks of data the base prompt had been equipped, and you can explain so what led to this or that answer. So getting back to yeah, and by the way, maybe I should start from speaking that, but mostly on the Isaac's first presentation in the beginning of the day, he asked the question, who knows about RAG, and almost everybody raised their hands, but for those who don't, it's retrieval augmented generation. So generation is that LLM gives us an output, but it is augmented with some data that we retrieved. So what's about the retrieval part is the key here. So how to retrieve data that is relevant. And as soon as we are here at the territory of natural language, so if we have some phrases like warmest welcome to Python conference and it is, pets make home more cozy, and my dog is a good boy. The idea is that for each of these phrases we can put a vector in a correspondence. A vector that will represent it in the space of meanings, of the deep meaning of what do these words say. And like I used OpenAI ADA 002 vectorization that gives a vector of size 1.5 thousand digits. And then if we combine, if we calculate cosine similarity metrics for the vectors that are given here, then the numbers will be like for my dog is a good boy, the metric will be like 0.31, and cosine similarity is closer to 1 the more vectors are aligned. So the bigger is the closer. So these are two most closest statements. Then pets make home more cozy is a bit closer to warmest welcome, maybe because cozy and warmest is something aligned. I don't know, this is a kind of black box for me. And the furthest is my dog is a good boy to warmest welcome, so it's far away to this phrase is far away. So what do we need to do is we have our knowledge, they are chunked, and we need to pick up the chunks of knowledge that are most relevant to the request. This is the idea. By the way, this is the good boy from the previous slide mentioned. And what my boss did with this first line support assistant was that like he explored this RAG architecture, implemented it based on vector database by V8, implemented all the code needed to act it, and then presented it in our internal conference that we have like once per 2-3 months, where the developers share their experiences, kind of great cultural stuff at Gurtam that developers are encouraged to share their experience when they investigate some new library and the new approach or whatever that makes the work for everybody else more efficient. They just deliver it. He explained that, yeah, the only problem about my boss is that he uses light themes for presentation. Who uses it? So he delivers this presentation, and my brain started to like constantly thinking, how can I implement it in my work? So what kind of tasks do I have to have it implemented? And the task that I always have is that I work with IoT equipment. And this IoT equipment, we have more than 100 protocols of different manufacturers implemented in our platform. And they are from all over the world, from Lithuania, USA, China, Israel, like whatever. And due to the cultural differences, the data that is passed by this IoT equipment is described in English, in natural language, but with absolutely different word that might have the same meaning. And in our platform, we want to provide the same name for the parameters that mean the same. So our customers can connect different equipment but receive the same unified data. And this process is so, so we call it unificalization because it's kind of shitty process that nobody likes to do, but still this is hard work, but somebody's got to do it. But the idea is that, for example, we have a standard parameter can point vehicle point mileage, and it can be described in the documentation like OBD odometer, because OBD and CAN bus is something that is equal. Or in another documentation, it can be named like CAN bus total kilometers driven. Again, due to the huge cultural differences from the manufacturers that we work with. Or another example, like engine ignition status, this is the one standard parameter that we have, and it has to be resolved to this engine ignition status from the description of car ACC or engine on-off. So, but the idea is that descriptions mean the same in the terms of meaning, but the words used are very different. We have these 3,000 parameters. Sometimes I need to find the parameter that is most suitable, and sometimes I need to invent new parameter name that will be aligned with our naming scheme that I always have. For example, the parameters that are from CAN bus usually should have prefix CAN, and the parameters that are Boolean should always have the postfix point status, and that's it. So sometimes I need to find the closest parameters, and sometimes I need to invent new parameters that will be aligned with our naming scheme. And this is how I enlightened with, hey, this is a super cool task for retrieval augmented generation, because all the parameters are available via API. I need to retrieve it that they already prepared, so they have the same structure. And all I need to do is just to vectorize it. So vectorize every description of the standard parameter we have, put it into some vector database or something else, and then when I have a new request to name new parameter, I just call this rack, like give me 50 closest names. I put it to the prompt and tell LLM like create me the best parameter name based on these closest parameters, because like loading all the 3,000 parameters is not efficient and sometimes not possible. And here is KDTree that came in action, because I started to think that I don't want to deploy databases. I just want to have my simple, nice, pretty Python script that will have all in memory, do everything for me, because it's a very small task. And the idea here is that we usually think of RAG applications like something huge. We need to load all the knowledge of the world there and then retrieve some information. But really, if you need some smart, sophisticated tool that you can develop by yourself in like a weekend, you can do it just like a simple Python code. And using KDTree is as simple as a couple words about KDTree. It's KD, it means k-dimensional tree, and it is binary tree. So every time we have like k dimension, we select hyperplane, which is like k-1 dimension, and that means that only one dimension left. It means that we have like a straight line where all the points that we have, all the 3,000 points that I have, they are just like points on this line, and we can select a middle point. The left goes to the left part of the subtree, the right goes to the right part of subtree. That's nice and easy and easy to implement. And the idea is that finding the several like 50 closest points or 10 closest points, or at least one closest point to what I have now is solved in O of log of n time. I did some benchmarking. Yeah, so even for 100,000 vectors, and for me I had like 3,000, the search time for 100 points and for 1 point is still like super fast, and is just like you can just take it, create a KDTree from the number of vectors that you have, like at this slide, like just initialize it, one line. Use it, one line, and this is so great. And so I just implemented it and became very happy. So final project that I came up with, and my idea was that it should work from VS Code. So I just also wrote some small VS Code application that detects if I write some symbol that detects that the next will be parameter. It extracts parameter description from the upper line comment. And generates, vectorize it, then search for similar in the KDTree, generates a prompt, and gives me the name that I need. So I had a script that first vectorized all the knowledge. It just get to FlashP API to get the parameter names, and to OpenAI embeddings to generate vectors. This is something that is run only at the time when I need to update my knowledge, or actually just run once for me. And the KDTree is stored on a local pickle file. Then I have this Visual Studio Code extension that gets the description from the comment. And once I type the code with the this hashtag symbol, it means that will be parameter name. It gets to some local server on my machine with the request, and the response is inserted there. And this local server works that at the beginning it loads this KDTree. So there is no need to build it from scratch at the beginning. Still is fast, so maybe it's not needed. The request itself, so what a new parameter that I need, it's vectorized at OpenAI embeddings. Then we find for the closest, like 100 or 50 closest parameters that I will equip in the prompt. And then it goes to the LLM to create a new name for me, and it's thrown back to the request of the Visual Studio Code. That's it. So just some random thoughts on the topic. Who knows this? What is CHDD development standard? It's ChatGPT driven development. Yeah, the idea that I spent like 4 hours on all that project, and I had a tool that automated me. Like before that, each parameter creation was at least like 2-3 minutes on searching the code, and now it's just like pew. And I just changed maybe like 7-9 lines of codes. Everything that I wanted was created by ChatGPT for me, and that's so cool because it's what I want from the programming. I just want to express my ideas and get working solution, maybe just like a little bit adopting it to my needs. Actually, I teach algorithms and data structures here in Vilnius in European Humanities University, and sometimes when I talk about some practical assignments with my students, I ask them, have you wrote this code, or did you use like Copilot or ChatGPT for that? And they always proudly say, no, I've written it by myself. And for me, it's the same like if I go to the workers and ask, did you dig this hole in the ground by yourself, when excavator is standing nearby, and they proudly say, yes, I used a shovel for that. So I explained that it's not a problem that you use ChatGPT. It's like a tool that you should know how to work with. So it's totally okay if you use it. So it's not I try to accuse you with using ChatGPT. You may use it, but you need to understand the output. And it's a great time that we live in that we can use such instruments. Another question is that at the modern world, we have a question of how much does your tests cost? Because when you write like 50 tests and you change something in your implementation, then you run the tests and it runs 50 times, so your test may cost several dollars, and you cannot run it on every little small change. So you just like have to keep it in mind. And by the way, this is the graph of our OpenAI usage, and by the spikes you may identify the days when our CEO worked on the development of our OpenAI assistant. So regularly, well, this is the weekend, this is how our users ask our AI assistant, and the spikes is usually when he runs the test, when he deploys something. Vectorization is cheap and self-sufficient by itself. So actually, as I said, when I need a parameter that already exists, I don't need LLM to generate the parameter. I just need some threshold that when passed, I use the parameter name. And the same goes with the documentation. For example, when user asks some questions, we implemented some stuff that when the user types the question, we vectorize it every 10 characters and give them a link to the documentation that is the answer. So sometimes they just don't ask a question because they see, oh, here is an article that answers my questions. Why do I bother real human meat people? And in this graph, yeah, this is just like a small tiny layer. This is yellow and almost not seen here, is for embedding models, and it's never exceeded 1% of the daily bill, even on the most loaded days. Another question that arises is, who do you write your documentation for? Because in my team, I'm have very good soft skills, so I was also responsible in writing documentation and articles about our new features, and they always targeted to real humans, but it changed half a year ago when we started to write documentation for our AI assistant, because humans don't read documentation. They are much more easily just asking their question, adopted to their needs. And AI assistant is equipped with this knowledge and answers the questions. So it has to be straight. Screenshots cannot solve all the questions, so you have expressed your thoughts in text. And you should write it so that it will fit in the chunk, depending on the chunk size that you have in your rack application. Right now when I write the documentation, I always keep in mind that it will be read mostly by OpenAI or Anthropic large language models. Well, but this is the world. And the last random thoughts on the topic is that I'm really thankful for all the giants whose shoulders we step on, because I feel so grateful that I can create things that automate routine in my work in so easy way. So I wanted to thank Python developers, the guys, computer scientists that invented KDTree for me especially, and of course for these people that develop large language models and how they help in our modern world to automate more and more spheres, because it always seemed to be very complex in the language part, because it always thought that it's only a real human can do. This was the last thought, that I want you to be the same grateful together with me as I am. Thank you.
Applause to Jan. Any questions from the audience?
Yes?
Input. Yeah, multilingual input, not English. Yeah.
So in my small project, it's only English, because it's based on English documentation, and I use it only in English. But in our AI assistant on our platform, we noticed that people started to ask their questions in their languages, and our AI assistant started to answer them in their languages. This is a pretty strange feeling, because the LLM answers something, we don't understand what it answers, we don't want to translate it. But and the problem with non-English is that it occupies more tokens, so it's more expensive.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you so much. Applause, warm applause to Jan.